doing another one of the immersive panels a week from
Yeah.
Wednesday. Does that work for you?
Oh, you want to do it on Wednesday?
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
We're going to try to make it its own day
Okay.
rather than taking over your day,
Okay.
if that works for you.
Sure. Well, yeah, and I don't need to be involved. I'm happy to
I'd
be
love to
though.
have you. Love to
Yeah,
have
yeah,
you in the conversation.
yeah.
'Cause I think it
Um,
helps to have someone not shooting all the time or not thinking
yep,
about it all the time,
yep.
asking the questions that are necessary to kind of, someone who's knows a lot about media, knows a lot about production, but
Pull it
doesn't
back.
necessarily know as much about immersive, to make sure
Hmm.
that we're not stepping over stuff and start talking about, you know, expanded foveation or, you know, like
Hmm.
that kind of stuff. Like we can very quickly drop into a bunch of things that we're, dealing with.
Yep. Yeah, that sounds cool.
Foveation. It's all about foveation. It's kind of the ball bearings of immersive.
Getting your own back. Five seconds. Hello and welcome to Extra Hours, part of the Office Hours Global network. If you want to find out more, Office Hours Global. You can find out more. You can join there /join, and you can get emails about what we're doing every single day. You can hear and talk about media. And so we have lots of questions. So every day at 7 a.m. Pacific, you can catch that. Lots of questions, lots and lots of questions getting slammed through in that hour show. We have the opportunity of a small panel tonight, which what does the small panel mean? Small panel means that Alex is here. And so that's that's what happens, because I feel like I could ask others to come and they may not get much of a chance to talk. And that's not just Alex's fault. That's because I would also be asking questions of Alex, and we tend to fill up the hour pretty quickly. So, Alex Lindsay, nice to have you here. How
Good
are
to be
you?
here. Good, very good.
And then we've got Guy Cochran as well. So between the three of us, I think we're going to fill up the time. Okay. How are you, Guy?
I'm doing well. Got up a little early this morning, but I'm ready to powwow. Wasn't sure if I was going to make it, but I had to go play in Alex's world for a little bit, and now I'm back in my little
Nice.
Cochrane cloud. It's nice to be back and cozy in this purple little vibe.
Nice. Yes, I have experience in the fact that when being on the panel of Office Hours, for 5 years now, we've built up these relationships, and so inevitably, what happens is panelists are the first people that people often think of when they need, someone to do a particular job. And so it's worth it if you're watching along and thinking, oh, I don't know if I've got much to offer or whatever. Yeah, just give it a try, because it not
I was thinking,
not that that is the not that's the reason that you do it, but it certainly is a good side effect.
yeah, I mean, I think
Alex.
my personal search algorithm for when I need to hire people there is like a very small circle of people that are kind of my go-to camera operator, my go-to, whatever. There's like probably 5 or 6 people that I'll usually ping related to that. And I've been working with them for 20 years. And then after that, it's panelists. And then after that, it's volunteers. And then after that, it's other people in Discord, in office hours. And then after that, I have to look wider. like if you're wondering like what I go, like I think almost everybody that was on that, we sent out 6 people today to go to theaters, and I think they're all panelists, or almost all of them except for one. We're all
Nice.
we're all panelists, and so and the
That's
only
cool.
reason it wasn't all panelists is because I think I randomly texted people going, "Hey, this is Alex. I need to talk to you." And some of them didn't respond. So I think they probably thought it was spam. Like, why would Alex Lindsay be texting me? Because I have your phone number because you filled out a form. So anyway.
That's awesome.
So,
All right. Well, I thought when I was thinking about this and thinking about there was a couple of people I asked that couldn't come today. But I thought, well, this gives me an opportunity because often I think about what is on Alex's radar. Now, Chris Fenwick used to say about Alex that lots of people, you could look over the fence, like we would look over the fence about what's coming next. Like it's greener, the grass is greener over the fence, and sort of look over the fence and see the green grass, and there's that next thing that's happening. Chris would say that Alex is in the next field over. So it's like looking further down the track. And so I wanted to quiz you a little bit, Alex, about there's certain things, hot topics that I know that you hit on in general are thinking about. But specifically, if you were to even get your telestrator out and you were to do a little radar, what are the points that are on that of the things that you're tracking at the moment?
I mean, the thing that I'm, there's a couple of things that I've been thinking about recently. I mean, obviously, a lot of what I'm working on is distribution to theaters. I'll show a couple of photos. I think I've shown these in other parts of office hours, but contextually, just so you get a sense of what I'm working on. My day to day is working on this theater project where basically what we wanted to do is build a stage that projects out to hundreds of theaters and tens of thousands of people. So as it rolls out, it'll be about 70, 80,000 people could go to see a concert. And instead of having, one of the things that we found was that if you put people in the room with the band will look at the people in the room. So we want them to look at the screens, like look at the some of the theaters. So we have returns coming back from some of the theaters. And so if you look at the stage here, this is the raw stage in Rocklidditz, Pennsylvania. And what you can see here is this is where, we'll project people, and these are these actually rotate. So they have real lights, physical lights. They also have LED walls. I'll show you in a second. And then of course a whole lighting array, and everything is controllable. Everything is addressable. There's many, many universes that are controlling these lights. And you can see the behind the scenes. There's, if you want to start counting the grand MAs that takes, I think there's other 4 or 5 grand MAs that run the whole system. This is the Verve Pipe was willing to come in and do a test concert with us. So this is the screen of that, what you just saw when it's actually active. Now you'll also see some lights down here. In some of the theaters, this tells us what the lights are doing, but in some of the theaters, lights are actually being added to the theater so that you have interactive lighting in the remote theater that ties back to our system. Fire elements, just in case you're wondering, we have that. And then here you can see LED walls. Those things have rotated now to LED walls. I was shooting obviously some test immersive stuff there, so that's why that camera's there. And here you can see, it looks like it's dangerous, but I actually moved this immersive camera over because it was further away than the other cameras that were right next to the fire. I was like, I'm going to move it to a slightly cooler position. They're the pterodactyls. And here you can see, this is all, what it kind of looks like. So you can see all these lights are all firing off. You've got lasers, as part of the process here. So it's really a full experience, but it's just turning that one screen into an experience there. There you can see the LED walls. Here you can kind of see a side shot. Now here you can see the band can see these other theaters that are there. And I think this is a wider. So imagine the band looking out and still seeing people. It's just that those people are somewhere else in the world, not right in front of them. So that's kind of the direction that goes. And this is what it actually looks like. This is at a theater. So you can see that the band, is kind of in that screen. And here we were testing lots of cameras. So we were testing 3D cameras. Here, I built my own little 3D camera here. That's a little iPhone stereo rig. And then this is a beam splitter. So
just on the iPhone one, why were you doing that to get 4K stereo?
Yeah. So, the issue is that the camera itself can only get, the camera itself can only do 1080p 30 per eye. If I can go up to 4K 120 if I have 2 cameras. And then, I'm working on a little video for the immersive channel, but the what you don't want to do is put them side by side so that this is the two lenses are over here, because the interaxial distance is way too far apart. So it's like, like it's like I don't even know if that footage would be usable. So you flip one of the cameras over, and then you really have to print a rig. I've seen some other folks try to build a rig from scratch, but the problem is every single degree is important when you're doing the eyes. And so if you don't build a rig that's rigid, it's not going to work. So anyway, so the idea though is that I needed higher temporal resolution, which is 60 frames a second. And it'd be nice to have 4K footage as well. So I've been working on that. And even then, the two iPhones next to each other, when you flip one over, they're at about 68 millimeters of interaxial distance, which is a little further than the average human being, which makes the it's not quite right, and so you really want to be in the low 60s. 64 is what the immersive camera set at. It's even more comfortable if you go down to high 50s, low 60s is kind of a nice comfy range for your eyes. But 60, 70, I would consider the most that I'd want to go to.
Do you know what the range is of the Vision Pro? So when that moves,
I don't know what the actual range is. The human range, I believe, is considered roughly, it's hard to tell exactly, but roughly 55 to 75 millimeters. So that's the human range. There are some people, we know people with their eyes are a little wider apart. They might have a slightly bigger head. So their interaxial distance might be a little bit further apart. And what happens is when your interaxial opens up a little bit, you can feel it. It just feels like your eyes are working just a little bit because they'll figure it out. And then the other thing is that you need to be able to control your convergence. And the convergence is super minor. Like to converge on 10 feet away is 1.5 degrees. It's just like just a little bit, so it's not, like even we started working on this. This is the next version of that where it flips them, and we have this little screw that lets us, kind of, change the convergence. Got a little worm gear in here and everything else. The reason I'm showing it to you and not trying to keep it hidden or whatever, it doesn't work. So, so this was a good try. It was, this is what happened. You make stuff.
Everyone.
Here you go.
This is how not to do it.
Here's how not to do it. Here's the thing is that number one is the gears here aren't fine enough, so it turns too much. It's 1 degree, and it's not geared correctly. And so as we built it, once you build it, you realize that it's not going to work. And then the second thing is that the axis, as we built it, the axis didn't end up right below the lens, and it has to be right below the, straight below the lens you're using, to make this actually work. And then of course I showed it to someone who does a lot of 3D, and he goes, you only have to move one camera. I was like, oh, to change the angle between the two, you don't have to move them both at the same time. He's like, you only have to move one. It's a lot easier that way. And I was like, oh, dagnabbit. So that's why you have friends. So anyway, so that's one of the things that I'm playing with. The interesting thing is as I play with a lot of the 3D stuff that I'm excited about, trying to share this, it becomes an issue with an Apple Vision Pro. As you know, I can text you something short, put it on frame. If it's something a little longer, an AIVU, just send you an AIVU file, and you can just watch it. And so it's really easy to send something to someone with Apple Vision Pro. If someone has a MetaQuest and they're not technical, like if they can't sideload and do whatever, oh my goodness, like I got this huge preview of what a cluster, and this is, the only reason I bring this up is that this is how Apple kills people. Like they're way ahead. There's this whole move fast and break things concept, right? That we're going to jump into this thing and we're just going to do something. But we're not going to finish it, or we're not going to worry about what the user experience is immediately. We just want to see if it'll work. And then they don't invest in the things. They don't pay attention to like, hey, if this isn't easy to use, people aren't going to use it, right? Like if it's a little. So if I want to share something with somebody that they don't know how to sideload, they just have a Meta. I had somebody who had a MetaQuest, and I want to share something with them. I got to put it on YouTube. The easiest way to do is put it on YouTube. Except YouTube doesn't automatically flag left and right eye, like, oh, we're putting up two things that look identical. Maybe that's a side by side 3D. No, you have to put metadata into it, which takes hours. And to do that, you have to take your footage and there is a, it's just insane. There's a GitHub that you download that's a Python script that is a folder, and you put the file into the folder, and then you hit a button, you open up a little script that says run this, and it runs it, and then it just sits there and churns. And if it's not that local file, you can't, it just can't find anything. No matter what you do to give it a different path, it won't work. You just put it in, as long as it's in the root with the script that runs, that finds it, it adds it all, and voila, it works. In fact, if you go up to my webpage right now, or my YouTube channel, there's a version of the concert in 3D at the moment, that if you put on your MetaQuest, you'll see it. And I don't know how long I'll leave it there. We're doing testing right now, so it's up. But the point is that it is.
But ironically, the Vision Pro can't see that.
No, but Vision Pro can't see on YouTube. But I can just text you.
Yes,
a file. The point is that Apple's obviously spent an enormous amount of time and effort to make sure that it was easy to share the files with other Vision Pro users, and it just is not like Meta and Google didn't get together. This is the problem with two different companies that are doing their own thing and not really thinking about what the other options are. And now maybe, I don't know, maybe if you open a Samsung, you open it up there, it'll pop right open. I don't know. But the point is that by making it hard, it annihilates, like we found that with our little Q&A system, if you ask people to give them your email before they ask the question, you'll reduce the number of people asking questions by well over 95%, and usually 98, 90%, 99%. Like it's, it's like little hitches that you put into user experience causes massive damage, and it's just an amazing, it's like making bread without yeast. I know I keep on coming back to bread, but there's a lot of people that want to make bread and then they're like, oh, but we won't add the yeast. It's just a little bit of something. It doesn't really matter. It's not, not going to matter. And it might matter,
So I wonder, I see that Vimeo is supporting immersive now.
I haven't done that yet. I need to, I feel like that Deadpool thing. It's time to get back on LinkedIn. It's time to get back in Vimeo, because they've got this immersive support. And there's a couple other platforms that are coming out that I'm talking to about it as well. But it looks like Vimeo, the thing I have, the bending spoons problem is the Vimeo problem, right? Is that I doubt that Apple knew that Bending Spoon was going to buy Vimeo when they started the conversation about putting this into, putting all this work into Vimeo, because Apple obviously has spent a bunch of time with them to get them to, I think, it takes a lot of work to get that working. But so I've been a little resistant to using Vimeo, because I'm like, I don't want to get hooked into anything, because I don't feel like, I just don't know what Bending Spoons will do. There's not a high level of trust that I have for that larger company. So,
Guy, what you've got a MetaQuest, do you?
Yeah, I was going to say that there is an app that you do have to pay for. It's $9.99 called Skybox, and with Skybox, there is a mode where you tell it that you're viewing side by side, and it automatically just pops up in this huge, like it looks like you're there in these different rooms. You could do like you're on a different, like this one's a piano room, and you could have different areas that you're in. But yeah, it is possible. It's just, you got to pay the money, pay to play.
And then where do they get the file?
I was just watching it on YouTube. So but stuff, there is their own little arsenal though. You can say AV1, MP4, MKV, move. I haven't loaded up my own stuff.
Is that shared?
No, but that's the challenge. Is
how do you get the file in there? Is that how you drag a file?
I think you would. I think you just in the app you tell it your directory, and then copy it into the Skybox video player directory, and then see this little folder icon. Then you can play your stuff that's yours.
It's the challenge gets back to, like, so if someone has a MetaQuest but they're not very technical, how do they get the file into that directory. Like, you know, like that's the challenge is that it's like, you know, you know, you just want to hand it to somebody who's a filmmaker or a director or something like that. Just put this on, and what is the easiest way for me to hand them the footage, you know, and that's the challenge.
YouTube, and then say search for this.
Well, no, but they have to plug to get the file. They have to plug it in somewhere, and they have to.
No, you just watch it live off of YouTube. Yeah, you go
right.
to
So,
YouTube.
but to go to YouTube,
app.
right? But to go to YouTube to do the side by, it's not just uploading a side by side. I have to go through this crazy terminal process on my end to make the MKV. So I have to for me as the creator to make the MK. It's not like I can just do a side by side and upload it to YouTube. I have to
you
run
can't
it
just
through
kick
this.
it out of DaVinci and upload it to YouTube as a side by side. Oh, okay.
It'll be up there, and ask me how I know. This weekend. So anyway, so anyway, yeah, like I was like, I uploaded it thinking, I'll just put up a side by side. YouTube is pretty good at figuring stuff out. It'll just make it side by. No, it does not. Now, if you, the fun thing is that right now that file is up there, and if you watch it and you have a red-blue glasses, it does anaglyph automatically. So if you're on a 2D screen, it'll just show you anaglyph. You know, but you have to tag it, and it's not like a little tag that you add to the file. It is somehow tied into the whole, like, to run this little script. I don't know what it does, but it does something to every single frame, and it takes an hour or two. Like I had a 20-minute, you know, video, and it took a couple hours for it to tag it. You know, like it's like you do it and then go for lunch, you know, and come back. It's not like it's more than coffee. So that's the problem though. It's just that, and they've been out for years, putting people through this incredibly painful process, which is not that painful. Like now I could do it. Like if someone at this point, it takes 2 hours to do it, but I could do it and it has to be, by the way, it has to be an MP4. So if you're doing it, the H.264 out of DaVinci is not usable in my opinion. So you'll do a ProRes out of Resolve, then you'll take it into something like Shutter, because Compressor is weird about MP4s. You'll take it into Shutter and make it an MP4, because and then you'll take it into, and you know, I think that it would make sense for Compressor to have an export option for YouTube for if you're shooting if I'm shooting a MVH EVC with my phone, I should be able to export an MKV to for YouTube, like, because they have other YouTube settings. 3D YouTube setting seems like it would be an easy way to make spatial more cooler.
Hasn't Hugh Howell made some videos on how to do this easy? Or is that going to be your gig this weekend? You're going to make one for us.
I'm going to make some videos. Yeah, I'm going to make some videos. Yeah, he's really excited about what he talks about, and it's hard for me to watch for long periods of time. So, I mean, he's really smart, and he's way out there, and he's helped the industry a lot. It's just, for me, I need calmer.
Put down the red. Put down the red.
Put on half speed.
It's not that. It's just excited. Like I'm just
right.
Like my wife listens to a lot of stuff where people are, you know, excited, and I'm just like, it's not my bailiwick, you know.
So needless to say, that the latency from recording to distribution at the moment is actually,
if you're not going live, because we're doing it
so
live.
Then you go live,
and in live it's instant. I can do 3D in real time, you know, and so that's and I can record it in real time, you know. It's you know, so it's just this kind of, I record, and there's other, you know, again, if it was relatively short as an example, this whole thing wouldn't take quite as long. But if I'm going to do if I did a song with somebody, and I'm trying to get that little rig to be exactly what I want and everything else, but as I go down that path, you know, the idea of getting a singer-songwriter to do a song, or a little band, you know, a band do something, you know, I think that a song would probably, from the time I shot it to the time it was up there, might take, you know, a half an hour. So it's not a huge deal now. And of course you need the Pro Doc to sync those two cameras together, which I just got 2 of. So I have, Blackmagic sent me 2 to test. So I've got 2, and then I've got a sync generator, and I'm using my sound devices as a time code generator, and so all these pieces are kind of coming together to get it all running.
Is
So,
that Genlock or is it a
yeah, it's
time
Genlock.
code?
So
Genlock. Okay.
the ProDoc, it's got, I don't have it right in front of me, but the ProDoc is it's a breakout like you'd have with any other USB-C breakout, but it's delivering Genlock and time code. It has three, it gives you three USB-Cs. It has power that'll deliver power to the phone.
That's great.
It has HDMI out, but it also has Genlock, and it also has like a 1/8" jack. I don't know why they're so obsessed with the 1/8" jack, but 1/8" jack for audio in and out, and then but it's got BNC for time code and BNC for Genlock. So now you can Genlock the two phones. And what's cool about that is that the phones will, you can sync the two phones in the Blackmagic camera. So you can say this one's a controller and this one is a remote. And so that when you're changing the settings on the cameras, they all change together, which is a
That's cool.
big deal.
Do you have to generate Genlock
Yep.
from a third device?
Yeah, you do.
So
what
are you creating that from?
I'm using the Blackmagic has its own Genlock, it's got its own sync generator, and I've got an AJA one as well. And then the one I think I want to get is Ambient makes one that generates Genlock and time code from the same device, and I think that that's going to be the most elegant. So I think that's that's probably what I'll get soon. For it, but it's it's a little bit of investment to make that work. But I think that that's that's going to be the right one because it's small and it just wires out to it.
And so, you had the immersive camera in there as well. How was that looking? Because I guess you sort of the stage is set up in a way.
We were testing lots of things, so I was trying to think of I haven't really dug through the footage yet because it's been so busy. After I got out of that, I went into, there's like 1,000 moving parts. And so you kind of go, okay, I'll get to that footage. So I was actually having trouble. I recorded that footage on a memory card, and we've had a little bit of trouble with some of the memory cards with the immersive camera, but it wasn't, I just got it to read. And, how did I get it to read? I don't know. I kept on taking it out, putting it in, taking it out, putting it in. Now it just wasn't showing up. And then it showed up. I was like, okay, there we go. So,
now's my chance.
Yeah, now's my chance. Pull all the footage. So, but it is, the new memory modules overall are fantastic. I mean, it's just these really fast things. This is a different one.
Is one
not the 8, not the 8 one. This is a 16 gig, but these are these memory modules here. This is a 16 terabyte one, and I meant to say 8 terabyte, not 8 gigs. That would be very absurd. But these are, really cool and just slide right into the side of the camera.
And heat sink on it.
It's got, this is the heat sink. It's crazy. But they are, I've been really resistant to getting custom modules, but these are purpose built and they have to be like this. I mean, this is the minimum that you're going to build, to make that actually work. So, So anyway,
that's video. And I noticed that sort of the control room seemingly is in a different room. Is that how that works?
Yeah. So if you look back at,
I love that all the lighting guys are looking at what everyone will see. Right.
Well, that became really important. In fact, it's really important they look at the screen and not their own screen, because one of the things we had to do is we had to crush the blacks a little bit, because on the screen it will not, if it has to be black in some areas, or it doesn't look like it has enough contrast. So you're looking at it on your monitor, it looks fine, but if you look at it on the screen, it looks a little milky. And so you had to kind of just nail it a little bit to make that work. But they see all of that. They have the controls. They have the sound is down the hall, but we're listening to it in 5.1. We're watching it here, and we're able to see it. And then again, those lights are doing whatever's happening in the theaters themselves, and the ones that we're wiring up. And so it's pretty slick.
So talk about sound. Then you were saying about 5.1.
Well, the hard part with all the sound is that the challenge is that near field, we've talked about this on many shows, but Cinema 5.1, when you put sound into the surrounds or anywhere, it doesn't carry the same way it does in a small room in what we call near field or in headspace and in your headphones. It's a much different space. The volume it's really hard to model. It's not like you can say,
Yeah.
well, I can figure out just put a little bit more here or put a little bit more there and it'll work. You have to hear it in the theater, and no matter what people think, it just does. And here's the problem. And it took me a long time to learn this because I did think at some point we would figure out how much more we had to put in the surrounds or how much more we had to do this. And John Ross, who's been on our show in the past, was like, no, that's not going to work.
Mm.
And it took me and you have to experience it. And Mickey said the same thing. He's like, well, I don't have a cinema space like to do these surrounds. I can't. And so Mickey said the same thing. John Ross said the same thing. And it really comes down to everything, how every instrument, everything happens is different. The high frequencies do one thing, the low frequencies do something else, the mid frequencies, because they're all traveling through the air and they have a lot more air to travel through in a big soft area, a bunch of water bags. Like there's all this stuff that happens that's absorbing all of that. But it's not like it's uniform because it's all different wavelengths. And so, and it's not just the wavelengths, it's the interaction between all the wavelengths. And so there's so much going on that it's really hard to model. Now you can say, as a rule, we should bring up the surrounds a lot more than you think we should, you can say that, but that's not enough. Right. Mm-hmm. And then you have to deal with like, where is the audience and where are there's all these things that, part of that process. And so, it's really, so the audio is really fascinating in that sense of trying to figure out, where we put it all and where all that stuff, where it all goes, and then just dealing with 5.1 in general is just so much of our technology is based around stereo that as soon as you go to more than 2 channels live, there's a whole lot of systems that are like, what are we doing here? So you have to kind of, think
it's a very different experience. I mean, people have been able to see concerts or whatever at cinemas for years, right? You could see a pre-recorded or like a Taylor Swift or whatever. You could do that, and a lot of that sound immersion was actually about audience as well, right? Like crowd that you're hearing in surround. And you
I don't know how many they had, and I know that I don't know if he's said this before. John Ross did the mix for the Taylor Swift one, and he. And they had, I thought it was like 17 or 18 mics that were in the audience, gathering different experiences.
What you're doing here, though, I think is super cool because it's not about pulling the audience into somewhere else. Yeah. It's about the artists coming into your space, right? Like it's actually you're experiencing it here.
Yeah, and that's the real commitment there is that you want to make sure that it is it's the artist playing to you, and or to your little, space, it's like the coolest space the artist could be in playing for you in that area. So anyway, yeah, it's pretty, it's kind of amazing, of where it's going. So we'll see, but we hopefully early next year we'll have an actual show that people can go to.
Amazing.
Pretty. Yeah. And then, the other thing that I was thinking about, but the other thing I've been really thinking about is like when you're talking about what's next. I mean, that's the stuff I'm working on. So that's like, I don't know if that's the next field over, but it's like, this is the stuff that I'm dealing with on a day-to-day basis. And Guy's now dealing with on some of the bases.
Awesome.
But, I think one of the things I was really thinking about is like, what are the next things to pay attention to? And 3D, I think, is really, really important, and one of the things I was, kind of, as I was thinking about that, really thinking about the fact that, when we think about the human race, I mean, if we want to be grandiose about it, there are ways that we communicate with each other. And when we figured out that new way, it greatly expanded how much we could share with each other. And I think that, first we learned how to say words. That was a couple 100,000 years ago. We started saying things that meant something, and we it wasn't just a bunch of sounds, but we started to say words. And then we figured out how to write those words down about 10,000 years ago. And that made a big difference. We suddenly remembered a lot of things and we suddenly were able to, share things with each other. Then we were like, how about we print them instead of writing them? And so, that only happened 1,400 years ago. and we were printing them all, and suddenly that changed everything. Then we figured out how to create 1,000 at a time by taking pictures, and then we figured out how to broadcast them through, words through, radio and TV. And then we just did the whole cycle all over again in internet, so we did first text and then pictures and then podcasts and then YouTube. And then, we just did the same thing again. But I think that the next thing that I'm paying a lot of attention to is where 3D fits into that, like 3D models and 3D. I mean, stereoscopic is one thing, but we learn so much by grabbing onto things. Someone shows you how to do something, and like you get to play with it. And I feel like that's a bottleneck right now. And I think that I've just really been thinking a lot about that and there's a lot of tools out there. One of the things that I'm kind of surprised by is that more people don't build 3D models of their products and make them available to people to do training. Like you look at all these people shooting video of stuff. Why are they shooting the video of some little object? Because they don't have a 3D model of it. Like if they had a 3D model and they understood that Keynote can just animate these 3D models, they would probably use them, but they can't, but that isn't, it's not something that's happening. I think that as we turn that corner, over the next 5 or 10 years, I think it's going to be a big deal.
So 3D printing in there as well, right? Like the quality of the prints, the price.
Well,
of
now
the
they're
printers.
selling CNCs, like little. We were talking about this morning in office hours, like little mini CNC mills for like $900. And so subtractive is going to be really interesting. I can get a little CNC mill. It's I can't think of who makes it right now, but it's like it's one of those things. Like it's a the Makera Z1 desktop. Let me pull this over. So this is like the breaking. Sorry, I'm going to move one thing into another. But here you can see this. This is this little Makera, and it's made by a company that's already makes CNC. They're just making a less expensive one. But you can, let's see if I don't know what it's going to play here. You can't hear that, but that just deafened me. So anyway, so it's got this little
on what material? There was
aluminum.
Wood,
no, this is aluminum.
Aluminium.
Aluminium. Exactly what I said. So
wow.
But, you can
wood
or plastic and it's got a laser one so that it can, and it's all enclosed. Look, I mean, you can build these little build little things. Like these are all cut out of it. I don't,
Wow.
So this is, and it's, it's $800 or $900 or something, that, and being able to kind of build all those pieces is, kind of cool. And so the ability to turn things into, take 3D models and turn them into things, is pretty amazing. But the ability also to, I think, and I think I've talked about this before, but, if you look at, we had a client who they make atmospheric, they read the, atmosphere particles of, let me see if I can find a thing of it here.
Yeah, that one's a Kickstarter. I wonder if we're going to see it at CES this year. January is just coming right up fast. And a couple of years ago, over the years, we've seen some really interesting stuff there at
and
CES
then they're just
3D printing.
Then they're just available at Walmart, like as in it's
a few more years.
Yeah, I mean,
I remember the first time that we got a MakerBot. I mean, it was like 2011. I saw it in the Microsoft store and I bought one. It was like $1,900, and my kids were taking little 3D prints to school, and they're like, "What does your dad do?"
What?
Yeah. No, it's incredible. I mean, and I make so many things like that. The 3D rig I was just, for the cameras. We made like 12 versions of that. Like, it was like, oh, that isn't quite right, or this isn't quite right, or this needs to be a little harder, and you just keep printing one every night. It takes 3 or 4 hours to print. So we would get it all worked out. print another one next morning, test it, do it again, do it again, do it again, and the ability to iterate. I mean, I go through a lot of PLA, but but like this is what Clarity, this company called Clarity.io, we did this a couple years ago, but if you look at this was their, this is their little device, but if I click on it, this is all just, I'm not doing this inside of inside of Cinema 4D or something like that. This is just Keynote. So this is, these are 3D animations, and I can add the little, 2D animations on top of it, and, kind of just drop those things in, and explain, how all this stuff works and whatever else I want to explain in that area. And then, so anyway, so the point is that, like, I feel like, and they still use that as for their product shots. Like, if you make it enough, the marketing team doesn't need to send somebody to a white cyc to build something out. If you put enough texture into it, Chris Fritchie did the model and the texturing for it, and he did such a good job at it. In fact, this one's the low res version. He had a higher res version, but it wouldn't run at the time in Keynote. So, just huge texture maps that looked amazing. And so, but the point is that it changes how you do a lot of other things as well. So it's, I think that there's so many places that makes a difference.
Yeah, I do think from the demos that I do for people with the Apple Vision Pro, JigSpace is just something that it's just not something they're expecting to experience. When they can have a jig in front of them and pull it apart and walk around it and make it big, make it small, see a heart pumping, or, see a Formula One car and how the wind flows over it. Like, it just switches a switch in their brain that was just like, oh,
it's definitely it's one of the first things that I immediately show people. Like, JigSpace is like the dinosaur thing. You kind of feel like you have to show first.
That's right.
And then you have but then you have JigSpace is usually the second thing. I'm starting to have some stuff. Saw some really cool Roz McNulty, who's in our thing, sent some stuff, and I was looking at it, and some dancing, and when I say some dancing, incredible ballet dancers dancing.
Right.
And and just, I didn't realize, it was funny, I told her, I said, I didn't realize how compelling ballet was going to be in immersive, and she's like, I did. so she was like, anyway, and it's so, like, there's something about dimensionality that makes such a huge difference, and just is a really amazing, and I think that's going to make a big difference as we go forward. But I think that it won't happen. My earlier example is, a lot of these things aren't going to happen with a bunch of companies thinking about how they're going to do it. It's going to take someone like Apple to unify the infrastructure, unify the generation of it, unify all the things that are required to do it, make it easy to actually execute. And I don't think Apple's all the way there either, but I feel like when you look at this, like, mismatch of Meta and Google, they both have all this technology. They were both way ahead, so far ahead, and they just haven't figured out how to make it, drag and drop, and I'm going to probably, like, one of the things I'm probably going to do is just at this point, now that I understand what it takes to make the MKV as an example, I'm just going to make a Mac app that just does that. Like, here's the thing that just, for all 10 people that need to do that. But,
right.
But I think, but now the thing is, you can do things for 10 people when you can vibe code,
100%.
Or in my case, persuade CJ to vibe code, if you're listening, CJ.
So sound obviously is a step on from
sound
that
as
well.
Sound is 80% of immersive. Like, it's and the whole thing is that when you look at, I mean, what's really interesting is I've spent a lot of time in Atmos and Vision and doing, in a lot of different Atmos builds and everything else. ASAF, which is Apple Spatial Audio Format, is in some ways not the same. It's just not the same. So ASAF and APAC, the Apple Positional Audio Codec, these are the things that Apple's building. And the interesting thing about Apple is they're just building it for your head. They're not building it for theaters. They're not building it and this is how Apple gets really focused. Like, they just go, our market is someone's head. They're like, that's their, that's what we want to optimize for, is an individual experience in their head of what that's going to look like. And so ASAF is very tied into ambisonic. It's like I think right now in the ASAF I believe in Resolve is like fifth order ambisonic, which is like, I think it's like 64, it's either 64 or 128 channels of audio, I'm sorry, it would be it would be as if you had
Objects.
64, not objects. You can have hundreds of objects.
Okay.
It's as if you had 64 mics, like it's just really, really
Right.
dense, and so, but you can have hundreds of objects, and then you can put them into that ambisonic space, and then you can export that out as ASAF, and that can go out with that ambisonic, or the ASAF encoding, but then also you can put it out as, you can put up a handful of objects that act separately from all of that. And then inside of that, of course, you're sitting inside of a ambisonic, essentially, but a ball. So as you move your head, you're all inside of that space. And I don't like listening to music that way, by the way. I like to turn that off because I don't want to hear Geddy Lee singing on one side of me when I'm listening to Tom Sawyer. But when you're watching footage and you want to look around, you don't want that audio to go with you. You want, if I'm watching something in immersive and I turn my head, I need that audio to stay where it was, and so the head tracking becomes really important. And so it's exciting. I mean, I think that that ASAF is, it's exciting because it's right at the ground level.
Yeah, I don't know if you caught it, Alex, but there was a 2-day developer conference with Apple, and they talk about that, exactly what you're talking about, for like half an hour. They just go
Do you know how I know all these things? Because I was in the audience.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, so one of the cool things there is that if you go to the Apple developer, there's 2 days of creating for immersive that are up there. They didn't show the last 3 hours. I think it was only in the room, and which wasn't super top secret, but it just was like they're just showing more nuts and bolts of doing stuff in Resolve and stuff like that. But the two video, the first day, the day and a half, is all up there, and it's great. I mean, I would highly recommend, if you haven't watched it, just go to Apple Developer, and I'm surprised that Apple is streaming that, because they don't usually stream that kind of thing, but it's great.
So when we're talking about demoing the Vision Pro, one of the things that I've done for a couple of people is the Steve Jobs Theater. Like when you go into Keynote and then go to Steve Jobs Theater, you can essentially be standing on the stage and look around and see your presentation on the massive screen, and see like at a downstage monitor. You can see your next slides and things like that. But the thing that I think is fascinating about that demo or that experience is the sound, because it's very subtle, but there is a sound to the theater. And that is that you can just hear something, and if you turn it on and off, you hear the space.
Yeah.
And whether that's a hum of air conditioning, or whatever it is, that type of, the space has a sound to it, and they've captured that. It's incredible.
It's funny. A lot of times, you capture, at the end of every time you do you do a clip for a film. Anytime you're doing a scene in a film, at the very end, everyone stops, no one moves, and they just record a little bit of audio. So they just they just do room tone, and that room tone is because the physics of that room is. And it's not just the room. It's not like someone will always ask, why can't you just come and do that before the actors get here? I was like, because it's different when we're all here. So you have to do it while everyone's still there, not making any noise. Everyone just freezes in their position, and you take room tone for 10 seconds or 30 seconds or whatever they've decided they want to take, because they need that when they go back to do, whether they're, when they're doing when they're overdubbing or, doing ADR or whatever, they need that room tone to kind of pull it all back together. It's that bed of making you feel like you're there. It's such a powerful thing. And it's even better in spatial. I mean, when you capture, I've been, playing with the immersive camera. I've got a couple things where I've captured just a scene to sit. I think that there's a market for the immersive camera of just going to beautiful places and having an ambisonic recording and just have it be a 360 of a beach or of a jungle or something. And it's like, I just want to go relax. I'm just going to go sit somewhere and just listen to all the stuff around me and everything else, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. We've got to talk to James Hustler again about that specifically too, because he does Explore POV is the Apple Vision Pro app, and that he's going around shooting all this stuff. And a lot of it is like going to these incredible environments and then just capturing the sound, even.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be anywhere near the experience if you weren't, like there's rainforests and things where you're just sitting in a rainforest, but it's the sound of the rainforest that, that you're hearing that really brings you into it. So thinking about those things that are on your radar, another hot topic for you, which we could spend a couple of hours talking about, but I specifically wanted to mention it because we were talking about it last week a little bit. Roscoe is often asking questions about, education and online education and things.
Yeah.
And I think we missed the question, but we were talking about in-person, versus online. And I know it's a hot topic for you is education. I'm sure it's sitting there somewhere.
Oh yeah.
Like you're constantly
I think it's all
thinking,
education. I look at all these things, like when I think about the thing I jumped on immediately with Sora, Sora 2 and everything else was just I want to see what history looks like. What does it look, have Sora create, Thomas Jefferson talking about Alexander Hamilton or the Gettysburg Address or other things. Like I want to think about what it was like to, and it's just the idea is to make it more real for people. So I think that there's a lot of goofy things going on with AI, but there's so much power in the ability to kind of make something real, for you. And I think that, and so I think AI is a part of that. But I think when it comes to video, the big thing is that I think that we have to use everything for what it's good for. And I think video is great. The thing that I found with education is that video is definitely not the only way to do things. In fact, it doesn't really work in large amounts, so what we found was that, and we've done this I did it with classes, but I fell into it by accident. I might've talked, this is a story that Grant might've heard before. But I'm always conscious how many times have I told this story? So Grant will tell me afterwards, like, you said this 20 times.
Greatest hits.
It's the greatest hit. So this is one of my greatest hits.
And then he might improvise the chorus sometimes, and I'm like,
exactly.
This is a new part of the story.
There, I didn't expect a violin and cowbell,
right.
and so the
exactly.
But the thing that happened was I got double booked. I was doing the summer camp and I had this idea. I like to teach kids how to do computer graphics, and not like, oh, here's a box. I taught them the exact same. I was teaching them, here is match moving, here is HDR, here is how to do 3D modeling and everything else in a week. They just get this incredible amount of training, and I don't pull any punches. I just teach them the same thing I would teach an adult, and they're like 12 years old, right? And they learn it at least as fast as the adults. But the interesting thing about that was they accidentally, I don't know how they got this, they scheduled me for full day training in 2 different classrooms at the same time. And everyone had signed up. There was all these people signed up. So they're like, can you make it work? Can you figure it out? And I was like, So what I did is I recorded videos of each thing. So because there was a basic class and the advanced class. The advanced class was the people I taught last summer, right? We're going to do something bigger. So it was 2 different classes, but I'd say, okay, here's the video, watch this, and I'll come back and answer questions. And if you get done early, help your friends, right? And so, but the funny thing was what was interesting was that the folks that were fast could watch it really fast. They'd watch it 2x and they'd sit there and just run through it really quickly. And people that are having trouble could hit rewind and go back and look at things and watch it again to figure out what that step was. And then and so when I got back, and all of them rated it, both classes rated as some of the best classes they've ever taken, and I did very little lecturing, like very little other than they would ask questions, and I would use those questions as a way to deepen their understanding of why they were doing what they were doing. So they're like, why did this get really, like it has all these edges? And I'm like, oh, that's because that's how the polygon, this is a subdivision surface, and this is how this works. And so they did the thing, it created questions, and then we were able to discuss it in real time, what those answers were, and deepen their understanding of what they had just done. But I think that is the thing is that I think that there is this, what they call direct instruction. And I think that that's important. I just don't think the teacher should do it. I think that, and I think this that it really works better when you can do it at your own pace, but you need Q&A. And the one thing I couldn't do in Pixel Core was Q&A. And that's why Office Hours is all Q&A, because I wanted to nail that problem, to the ground, and because in DV Garage, for anybody who took the stuff, ironically, they were 9x16 vertical. I didn't think about a phone. I didn't know about a phone. Chronicle Books made a little how to do gardening, and they had a little card set that was 9x16 that I thought was great. Anyway, so that's why it was built this way. But it had a video like this, and then it had a still that would show you what to do, and you could click on it and it would do video. And then it had to do this, and it very precisely, and then why you're doing it. That was every step. And we built all the DV Garage training was built that way. And I still haven't found a better way to teach people how to do stuff, other than it's hard to make those. Back then we couldn't use video, we couldn't do screen captures because the computers weren't fast enough. So everything was animated in After Effects, which was insanely difficult to make that happen. But I think that giving people that direct instruction of how to do that, and then having discussion in class, using the class time to have discussion, is so much more interesting than discussing it in class. So I think all homework should be video.
You couldn't do screenshots because the punch cards were hard to give people.
Exactly, the punch cards were like, I can't move the punch card this fast. No, there was like one program. Guy, do you remember who made that? There was a
Snagit.
No, Ambrosia Software.
Yeah, Ambrosia Snaps.
So Snaps was the thing, but Snaps in 2000, Snaps was just barely could grab a couple frames. I mean, it was still, it did get to a point where it
was like 20 grand for a Folsom to capture the screen.
Yeah. And even then we had trouble with the resolution and like how to compress it. And so what we did is it does make all the DV Garage training not viewable now, because we did it all in Flash, a Flash layer. So we did it in After Effects. We animated After Effects, and then we did them in Flash layers in QuickTime. To embed them, because that was because it was really light. You could, in one CD, you could put.
You had to tween. Remember that term, tweening?
And all the attention to details, like all the stuff I did with attention to detail and everything, almost all of those are unwatchable unless you have a really old computer, because after QuickTime 7, they wouldn't open. They're not valid. Someday I'll go back and find an old computer and render them all out. All you have to do is open up QuickTime and hit save. You don't save it out as something new, but
it's funny. Flash has never really been replaced. Not quite, not the same way. Like there's other things.
The idea was HTML5 was going to do it.
Yeah.
Keynote can do some of it. No. And we got rid of something. Didn't replace it with something.
We did a thing at church that I was at one time. We put on a Who Wants to Be a Millionaire experience, and so we copied the exact interface with the questions, and we did it all in Flash. So then you actually just click the buttons and it plays the sounds, and Flash was a really easy way to do it. I just wanted to get to this. Roscoe has sort of reworded a question. Guy, this question sitting there.
Yeah, Roscoe Jones, Madison, Indiana, asking, what will help us determine the accuracy and thus the worth of online versus in-person content?
I don't know what accuracy means there. Like, I just don't know, like is it because people are testing well, or is it, do they really know it? Like we have this problem in Rwanda where, we built lots and lots of video training on how to use Photoshop and how to use things. And we used it as a way to figure out, in Rwanda, our school doesn't charge for the school. so you can go for free to it's paid for by the government, as part of the workforce development program that they have. And so it's free tuition, and, it's really cool. But we'll have lots and lots of people, um, enroll. Like 1,000 people will sign up for 40 spaces, so because it's free, and you have to pick who's going to be the people that are going to be the most successful at it. And how are we going to, like, we're trying to find the right, the right mix of people to do it. So one of the things we did is we enroll a lot more people and then put them through where they do these video tutorials and everything else. And we thought that would be a great way. If they get good at that and they prove themselves, they'll all learn something. And then we'll just cherry pick the ones that do well and put them into the production. The problem with that, what turned out, was the people who were good at doing the video training were not people who were good at doing live. And the people who were doing good at live were not good at the video training, so because it's just not the way their minds worked. And so the people who did the video training, if you put them in a real world environment, they had a lot more trouble kind of thinking on their feet kind of thing. And so it was kind of an interesting puzzle that you kind of needed people to, and what I guess what I would say is that there are skill sets that you have to give people. And I think that if you want this dance, to be, I'm going to give you videos to watch, and then we're going to walk through it and talk about it in a Q&A environment. But you've all seen the videos, or some percentage of you have seen the videos. And if you didn't, that's your own problem. Like, it's like, I'm going to give you the videos. That's why I think your homework should be watching or listening only. No doing, just watching and listening at home of contextual information, or reading. You can send people to read, but I would say listening to books. I wouldn't inflict text on people if it didn't have to. It's a very poor, it's a really good compression technology that takes a lot of encode and decode capacity to make it really work. And so, but audio, you can listen to something or watch something or read something, whatever you want to do there. So you give people some stuff to read, to absorb, knowing that the next day in class, we're going to talk about that, and you're going to come with questions, and we're going to go through it, and we're going to go lightly through it until people ask questions. And I think that if we did that, I think that dance works really well. And then they can work on things in the class where the teacher can actually answer the question. So you're not inflicting new math on old parents, like that's not fair. It's not fair to the kids. It's not fair to the parents. I can tell you that for nothing, because we don't understand new math, and we just keep on saying, I don't know why they're doing this to our own kids. So the problem is that, like, I call new math stupid math. And so it doesn't help my kids learn math, because their dad is like, I don't understand. This is dumb, and so the teacher should just keep them. If they're going to teach them new math, they should keep them in the classroom. And so but they could be watching videos about it and doing stuff. And there'll be some kids that don't need to watch the videos. If you just let them sit in class, they'll learn everything. And there'll be some kids who only, who need to ask all these questions, and but it lets you kind of give them what they need. But having them doing things for homework, I think, is a form of low level abuse. Having kids having all the stuff they have to do over the weekend, or all the stuff they have to, I don't think that that's appropriate, flat out.
What do you think when we're talking about in-person versus online? So you split a difference with.
Oh, you're talking. I was talking about video versus the
video. Yeah, but sort of.
I think that look, there's a certain energy of being in the room, but I think that there's a lot of scalability when it comes to online that you just can't. The problem is that there are 40,000 physics teachers in the United States. There's not 40,000 good physics teachers in the United States. Like, there's probably 4,000. Like, I'm not saying, it's, like, I know that's a brutal thing to say, but that's kind of the math of physics, of any profession, that there's a lot of people that aren't as good at. My daughter is going to drop out of chemistry after this term. She's not allowed to drop out of. Why? Because the teacher's so bad, she doesn't want to do it anymore. Like, she's just like, this teacher is so bad, and I have to learn everything myself. She's learning from Khan Academy to keep up with the class, because the teacher won't answer the questions in class, because she's like, you should have read it in the packet or done whatever. The teacher has a way that they want them. They decided the student should learn, and none of the students are learning that way. And my daughter was like, enough. I'm just not gonna. I'm gonna go. Life is too short to do this. And so the thing is that we need to get to a point where we're only hiring good teachers, and we really could get to that point. But to do that, we have to scale the classroom model. So instead of 15 to 1, we really need to be thinking about 150 to 1 or 1500 to 1, and then you have the best teachers interacting with them. And if you move towards video training, so they're watching a bunch of stuff and then the teacher's answering those questions. And then if you can atomize the class so that people are working on projects, and then you have, now that one teacher might have 10 or 15 other teachers that are part of that cohort. So when people have individual questions, they can raise their hands and be pulled together and answer, and get those questions answered. But what we found with office hours, and I think you'd find this with a lot of other things, if you have a large number of people all listening to the same questions and listening to them, they'll all learn because they're all hearing other people are thinking of questions that they would have never thought of, and so it digs into the conversation at a much higher resolution. Like I won't even accept doing classes for 15 students because I couldn't do it. I don't want to talk about less than 100 because it's just you can't get enough question velocity out of 15 people unless they are trained to ask questions at every moment off the top of their head. And some people are, unless they're really that good, the question velocity is too slow and you can't get through the information. You need the question velocity very high. That's that's why office hours works. It's because we get relatively good question velocity.
I think Roscoe is getting to the heart of facts, fact checking and who's checking the fact checking, and kind
Pluto.
of, right.
That's my answer. Pluto. Like I spent my entire childhood being taught that Pluto was a planet. Now it's not a planet. What is the, I don't want to say what is the facts, but I think we have to be careful of going, okay, well, we're going to teach them. Like there are, I think, very clear facts on a lot of things. And then there are things where we need to talk about it and figure, understand that I saw this interview with Ken Burns. I'm so excited about the Revolution, which is the American Revolution, which is coming out. The new Ken Burns thing is coming. I'm a big James Burke fan and a huge Ken Burns fan. And I just can't get enough Ken Burns. And so, his new one's called The American Revolution. And so he spent 5 years doing this thing about it. And about the American Revolution. And it's going to be, it's coming out, I think, around Thanksgiving, I think. And, I'm super excited about it. But he said he showed it in his office or in his studio or whatever. There's in a neon sign that he had made. It just says, it's complicated, it's complicated. And so when we get outside of basic math, it gets complicated, and I think that we have to understand that. I think the problem is that I have with school is that I think that school needs to be very, very good at two things, and that's math and reading, and it just you have to learn up through algebra. You have to understand that as a person. There's so many things, geometry maybe, and trigonometry maybe, and calculus maybe for people. If you love that, then keep doing that. But you have to be proficient through algebra, and you have to be good at reading. And if you look at them in Mississippi, they just said, we're going to focus super hard on reading, and all their test scores went up. Not just the reading scores, but everything else. Because once you read, you can learn. You learn to read until you can read to learn. And I think that our schools worry too much about all these other things they want to teach kids, and they have to nail this. And they can't allow students. This isn't about technology or in person or online. That whatever they're doing, if they don't pass, and I mean get A's, not 60%, but 90%. In reading and math in their grade, they cannot move forward. That just has to be you can do whatever the other ones are, sure, but those two have to be and if you're failing, we're just going to stop doing everything else. You're going to stop learning about civics and geometry and geography and everything else. Everything's all going to become, how do we get you to learn to read, and give you the support you need, not force you to read, but how do we give students enough? Because if they don't do that, the stats are so bad after that. And I think that AI, is going to make a huge difference in this area. I've talked about this on this show, I think before, is that, I was talking to someone who does AI technology or innovation. It's a startup and they're doing investments, stuff like that. But one of the things they were talking about is, you're, as a kid, the AI is going to be able to ask you, what would you like to read a story about? Well, I'd like to read a story about a pony that goes to the market. And what does the pony do? And it asks a couple things. And it just asks them questions about it. And at 5 years old, kids are incredibly creative. And by the time they're seniors, they're not very creative because school is beating it out of them. So if you start early, they won't learn those bad habits of not being creative. And they'll think of all these things they want. And he said, and then the AI will write a book at their Lexile score, like whatever they're capable of reading, a little bit more. It'll just push them. If they're at a Lexile of 100, it'll give them 120 or 130, slightly longer words and it will make pictures, of the whole thing that they can look at, and they can read the book that they just had an idea about. And he said, and it'll all happen in a minute. like it'll just, it'll all just be this thing. And will they learn how to read that? Yeah, they're going to learn how to read that quickly because it's what they love. And we have to stop thinking about what we're trying to teach them or whatever when it comes to it. The only thing that matters is Lexile scores in the early days. Like they have to be able to read. The Lexile score is everything, and it should be the number one priority. And AI is potentially going to make that really easy to get to because it can give them just whatever they're interested in learning about or whatever story they're interested in. It will just give them one of those things. And that's the easiest way to learn is when it's covered with ice cream, like it's, like the easy, and I call it dessert first learning, but you want people to be excited about it. And excitement is the wonder drug of education. And most teachers don't think it's important. No, we don't think we have to inspire or entertain the kids. It's their job to come here ready to learn. And you're like, okay, well, see how you do, so,
yeah.
So anyway,
I knew that I was poking the bear when I brought up education.
Yeah. I think
Alex,
about education
it's
every
so
day.
Good.
Like it,
I know. It's great. And I do too. I mean, I got 3 young kids. And so I think about what does it mean for them? And as AI, the type of stuff that we're doing with AI now is mind blowing.
Well, I think that
that's their world. That's the world that they're growing up in. And I think they're already thinking where I started to think about, I can Google an answer to that. It's like, ask ChatGPT, and it'll give me the answer.
When I have a conversation with Chat while I'm driving, my big thing while I'm driving is there's some concept I want to work on while I'm driving, like some idea of technology I don't understand is my number one thing to do while I'm driving. And I sit there and just talk to ChatGPT. And is it 100% accurate? Probably not, but it's not very far off, especially things that are like it's pretty good at it.
It's still an expert. It's an expert.
Well, it's an average. Right? It's an expert to me. So So the thing is that when you think about what I know is there's these things that I'm really smart at, right?
I just poked Alex with another hot topic.
Another one
said AI.
So, but look, this is something I've been thinking about. So these are my knowledge base. This is the average knowledge, right? So for these things, I know a lot more than the average person, right? Some 3D or video or whatever. But down here,
green screen.
These areas, green screen. But these areas, I know a lot less about. I know a lot. I don't know how to maintain a yard very well. I don't know how to do, there's a whole bunch of things I don't know how to do, right? And so these down here, this is what
you change
AI
the oil in your car. Oh, you probably can.
No,
I probably learned.
No, car down, way down here. It's like way down. I don't know. When my car doesn't work, it stops. I take it to someone and they look at it and then they tell me what it is. I pay them some money and I go back to what I was doing.
Me too.
I will not I will not try to learn my car because I'm afraid I will, and then I'll be obsessed with it. And so you have to learn to if you have an obsessive personality, the key is not under any circumstance allow yourself to do things that you might get obsessed with. So anyway, yes, exactly. This is AI, right? This is the average. So in these areas that I don't know very much about, whatever it gives me is a lot better than what I had. It's going to be better.
Oh yeah.
In the areas that I know a lot about, I go, well, maybe, it feels mediocre, like not wrong, but I don't need it for that. But there's, what I know more than the world that I know I have an above average understanding of is probably 1%. Well, let's be clear, 0.001% of the world. I might know a little bit more than the average person. So everything else, ChatGPT is super useful. So totally and so and I think that's the
what
thing. That's
voice are you using? What voice do you listen to? Do you know? Because I tell you a problem that I've got now is the more technical I get, the funnier it is to me, and actually a little bit uncomfortable. I think the default is a woman that is, a woman voice, and it's a little bit sassy. Okay.
Yeah. Janet. How is water formed?
Absolutely. I'll keep it warming to the point for you, Alex. Just let me know what you need and we'll dive right in.
It's kind of the same.
It didn't hear me clearly.
Sometimes I was doing a whole deep dive into a GitHub, repository, and it's like, yeah, I get that, Grant, and if you want to do some GitHub,
mine's a little less than that because I put it in the settings.
Right.
I added stuff into the settings that are.
I understand what you're saying. Yeah, to keep it really succinct.
Yeah. There's a personalization under settings. Mine's really long now. It says system instruction, absolute mode, eliminate emojis, filler, hype, soft asks, conversational transitions, call to action, appendixes, assume the user retains high perception despite blunt tone, prioritize blunt directive phrasing. I have a
gotcha. Yeah.
So that gets added to every every prompt that I give it, right? And so it's still a little bit nice, but for the most part it's pretty direct. And anyway, so and Janet is because of The Good Place. I think we've talked about that in the past. Janet.
Yeah, I do that a lot. I had a email come through. It was like, oh, can you just answer these 10 questions because we want a response for to write up this thing. And I was like, I do not want to sit down and write out these 10 responses. So I just copied it in and then switched it to chat mode, went for a walk. It asked me all the questions. I've, ummed and ahed my way through my answers. And then it gave this beautifully succinct 2-sentence response for each question.
Yeah.
Mind blowing. And it was all my stuff. I was very happy with it. It wasn't like it was, making up responses. It was still all of my words. Just really succinct. Good. So there has been times when I've had the panel with extra hours and Alex would be like, just tell me if I'm speaking too much. And I'm like, you're not speaking enough. And that was why it was like, this is good where we can just, because we're focused in, it almost felt like a little interview, which was nice because we'll dive into some of these topics in a good way.
It's fun.
But yeah, it's fun. But we are going to do sometime soon some more immersive.
We're looking at a week from Wednesday. So I think I'm going to drag you on. We'll see if we can get James on. We're going to get Brenton. Brenton's coming back, and so and Brenton saw the first one, of course, and his studio is now much nicer. Like he and I meet pretty often, and he's been like revving up the studio, so he'll be in a really great space. But he's got the camera and he's been doing tons of shooting, and I've got a bunch of footage, and so we're thinking about it a lot. Right. And so we're going to try to do it every month starting this next Wednesday. So it'll be the second Wednesday of every month, which happens to be one that just doesn't run into a lot of other holidays and other weird stuff and everything else. Second Wednesday seems like a good day. So we're going to start doing those starting again a week from Wednesday and
at the same time.
I think we're going to do it at the same time. Yeah. It's the right time to do it. So it's like, there's not a lot of, he can't do it much later. Like we have people on the East Coast too. So yeah.
Very good. Thank you. Each. We're going to save our content recommendations because we've gone so much far on. I think we've actually kind of sprinkled a few recommendations throughout the discussion. But I wanted to say thank you each to people who've been playing along at home in the chat. We've been keeping an eye on that. We didn't get to many questions, just one. Sorry, there was a couple there, but push them back. We are in a separate event in Meccana, and so you might just want to copy that out and paste it into office hours, and you could post it for tomorrow morning. A couple of those questions will fit perfectly with the panel tomorrow. Otherwise, you can catch us again next week for extra hours. Have a good week. Thanks, everyone. Thanks to the team on working in the background. We always go a little bit over. Taylor and Peter and some others. Was it Robert? There's a few others in there. Thank you all for the work that you do. And Alan. There we go. Alan. I did pretty well. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.